Resident Evil games are iconic in their own right, featuring some of the most horrifying and memorable creatures to ever grace a video game. Back in 2002, we got our first big screen adaptation with Paul Anderson's version, which left a pretty bad taste in die-hard fans' mouths. And somehow, it spawned 5 sequels that got even further and further away from the source material as it went on. Then we got Welcome to Raccoon City by Johannes Roberts. This was a more shot-for-shot remake of the first 2 games, but it still had a few issues. With that being said, who did it better, Anderson or Roberts? Paul Anderson gave us 6 Resident Evil films. In those films we got Nemesis, some lickers, a couple giant lickers that weren't even in the games, a tyrant, kinda, the executioners, and of course, the zombies. We also got appearances by Chris, Claire, Jill, Leon, Wesker, and some others. But of course, the main focus of all these films was Alice, played by Anderson's wife, Mila Jovovich. And then, in the Johannes Roberts film, it was adapted closer to the games, with it being a combo of both 1 and 2. Even with the plot being a bit overloaded, the characters we got were way closer to those of the games. So with that being said, let's compare the characters. In the Anderson films, Chris Redfield was played by Wentworth Miller, and while the actor did very well with what he was given, the version wasn't even close to the games. Instead of being on the STARS team, he was just in the army and was left behind after his unit left the area following the outbreak. The only connection he has to the games is that he's Claire's brother. In the Roberts film, Chris is played by Robbie Amell and is actually a member of STARS just like in the games. He even goes to the mansion and it plays out similarly to how it did in the first one. Even the attire is spot on. I'm not really too sure what's happening here though. So obviously, Roberts wins this one. Jill Valentine is a tough one. She's played by Sienna Guillory in the Anderson films and was pretty much right out of the game as far as appearance and demeanor. And then she reappeared later on with the RE5 suit and looked like she walked right out of the game. So Anderson did really well there. It's a shame that Guillory couldn't be the lead in one of the films. And then, Roberts gives us this. Don't get me wrong, I love Hannah John Kamen, and she was a badass as Jill. I will note that this version is an amalgamation of both Jill Valentine and Forrest Speyer, though, in case you didn't know that. Hence the jumpsuit. She's a lot more tomboyish and more of a side character than anything. Not to mention that Roberts had her romantically interested in Wesker, so yeah, this one of course is going to Anderson, I hate to say. Leon S. Kennedy. This one may be a draw. So Anderson had Johan Erb play Leon in one of the films, to which he was made a throwaway character with nothing more than a cameo, more or less. As opposed to the rookie RPD officer, he wasn't even remotely close to that. He was on some task force put together by Wesker to save Alice from an underground umbrella facility. At that, Barry was his partner. So yeah. Appearance-wise, he favored the RE4 Leon, which isn't horrible, and he did have a connection with Ada. But aside from that, it was bad. Really bad. Roberts' Leon, on the other hand, was a rookie officer, but a bumbling fool, so he was pretty much incompetent the whole movie. Yes, he had the look and the storyline of the games, but his attitude was way off. Apparently, this iteration of Leon was a combo of both Leon S. Kennedy and Carlos Oliveira, so I guess that's what they were trying to do there. Avan Goja played Leon in this one, and he did really well, but they wrote his character to be way too goofy. Even with that being said, Roberts gets this round. Claire Redfield was played by Ali Larter in the Anderson films. Despite her first appearance, which was the leader of a convoy in the desert, what the fuck? She later became kinda closer to the character. I mean, she had a red jacket, so yeah. But other than that, this version of Claire had nothing to do with her video game counterpart. In the Roberts film, Claire was played by Kaya Scodelario, and she did amazing. Not only was Claire the main character of the film, but it's like she walked right out of the game. My only gripe is that she didn't have the ponytail. A small detail I guess I can overlook, But yeah, her appearance and the way she portrayed the character was spot on. Roberts gets another point. Alright, so how about some B-list characters? How about Carlos? Well, Oded Fehr did a great job in the Anderson films. Well, in Apocalypse, he was basically video game Carlos. However, Extinction? No. That was just weird. Sadly, Roberts didn't fit Carlos into his movie. And with it not doing so well in theaters, I don't think he'll pop up in a sequel either. So I'm not scoring this one, because both directors didn't use the character. While we're on that subject, Nemesis is another one not used. Clearly because Roberts didn't tie in Resident Evil 3 to his movie. But Anderson did a great job with Nemesis, aside from him regaining his humanity and fighting with his fists, though. That was garbage. Oh yeah, and how he was Matt prior to becoming Nemesis. No, we all know Nemesis is just a mutated Mr. X. Alright, moving on. Ada Wong was played by Li Bingbing in Anderson's films. She did a pretty good job, but was merely used to assist Alice. I mean, she did work for Wesker, but not in the same way as in the game. She was a spy, kind of, but not really. Plus, Alice matched her fighting skill, like, shot for shot. Which is just because Anderson made Alice way overpowered, because that's his wife. Anyway, so Robert's Ada was played by Lily Gao, and was only featured in an end credit scene where she gave Wesker his classic sunglasses. In that film, she was the one who hired Wesker to steal the G-Virus. So in the game it's kind of the same thing but in reverse. So there's that. But just because of the lack of Ada throughout Robert's movie, and the fact that Anderson showed her connection to Leon, I have to give this one to Anderson. Sherry Birkin. Well, this one's a tough one because Roberts actually had Sherry in the film, but she wasn't a main character at all. In fact, she was only in like 2 scenes. And she never really interacted with Claire. In the Anderson films, there was a girl who I think was supposed to be Sherry, but she was like a combo of Sherry and Alexia Ashford, I guess. I don't know. But her name was Angela Ashford. It's hard to say what the hell Anderson was thinking. Even if Roberts didn't have her much in the movie or have her pal around with Claire, I still have to give this round to him. So, congratulations. Well, all that leaves really is Birkin. Neil McDonough played William Birkin in the Roberts film and was one of the best parts about it. He played the character to the T, and it was a great on-scene portrayal. However, the ending with him transforming was a bit off. They didn't really bother explaining the G-Virus or what it does or how his transformation worked. But at least they called him Birkin. In the Anderson films, there was supposed to be a Birkin played by Jason Isaacs. You know, the guy that played Malfoy's dad in Harry Potter. But Isaacs left after the first film and was replaced by Ian Glenn. And instead of Glenn playing Birkin, they kept the character and renamed him Dr. Isaacs in honor of the other actor. Why? Just why? That's really stupid. Anyway, so this version does get infected and transform, but instead of using the G-Virus, he gets bit by a super undead and turns into a tyrant. Which is just lazy writing, if you ask me. That's not even really Isaacs, it was a clone. But that's a whole nother video. Anyway, so it's obvious that Roberts wins this round, making the score 5-2. So there you have it. With Anderson having 6 films and Roberts having only 1, even though Roberts crammed 2 games into 1 film, he still adapted it way better than Anderson ever could. Well, in terms of characters anyway. When it comes to plot, obviously Roberts wins, hands down. What do you guys think? Roberts or Anderson? Alright, well, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you later.